Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Prospero.ai stock market live streams. The market is mostly green today. Currently, the Dow and the Russell are just barely in the red, but the QQQ and the SPY are green on the day. Let's update everybody first and foremost on the Prospero AI net option sentiment for the SPY and QQQ before I take you all through the topics as people are rolling on in here. Be sure to hit that like button if you enjoy the streams, like the topics, are excited for them today as we roll on into them. Currently, the QQQ is at 40, so dead even on the bull line. If you're newer to the Prospero signals, for the SPY and the QQQ, the bull bear dividing line in the sand is 40, so QQQ is right on that right now. But SPY is far lower, currently at 4. I was looking at it a bit earlier and it was at 7, so it's dropped a few points since just about an hour ago. We'll see how these metrics update throughout the rest of the day as we have an hour left here today. What I want to ask George here is, we're seeing mixed signals in Prospero, but the market keeps on melting up higher. And it seems like even in the face of some what seems to be troubling updates where, Trump has come out and talked about how it's difficult to commence with trade talks with the president of China, Xi. And nothing really seems to be affecting the market. Besant had kind of mixed comments the other day. So how and why are we seeing the markets rally? And can we, push through the all-time highs, which are just a couple percentage points away now, without any more certainty, just knowing what we know right now. So we'll get into all of that. Then we're going to talk about Tesla stock because it was down over 3% today. And Elon came out and spoke against the spending bill that is trying to be passed. So some division going on there. And I want to ask George, is the drop we're seeing in Tesla today, is that because some of the value was due to the connection that Elon had with the administration and the regulation benefits that were thought to be coming from it? Tesla is now down 2.8% on the day. So we'll get into Tesla stock there. Then I want to talk about Roblox. If you guys have not been following Roblox stock, it is up about 55% year to date, currently at 91.58 per share, up 166% in the past year. What is going on with Roblox? Why is it able to rip higher? It has very good Prospero signals. Net option sentiment was over 90, I think at 94 when I checked this morning. So I'm wondering if it has to do with the update on the Epic Games Apple lawsuit that was going on for years that Epic Games finally won. So now are people pricing in big companies that have big apps on the App Store? Are they going to be able to make more money? And is Apple going to have to lower the fees across the board? Then we're going to get into Broadcom, which has earnings tomorrow. And we've highlighted it a lot in our signals. For a little bit, it was looking better than NVIDIA. But we have to ask George, what's the latest on the competition between Broadcom and NVIDIA? And how are they looking ahead of their earnings tomorrow? Meta came out and announced they're inking a deal for 20 years with Constellation Energy for nuclear power. So a very long deal. I wonder why did they feel the confidence and need to commit to such a long-term deal, and what it means for them as a company, and the broader nuclear space, which we've been talking about on a lot of recent streams. Then a headline coming for Wells Fargo. I had never even, I've been following the market for years and years and years and years now. I'd never even knew that Wells Fargo had an asset cap until today when I saw the headline of how it's being lifted after 7 years. They had an asset cap of 1.95 trillion set by the Fed, and that is being lifted. So let's actually take a live look at Wells Fargo, see how they're doing today, if that is boosting the stock. Wells Fargo is currently up 0.2%, so not much of a boost there. I'm sure a lot of people already knew about it and were pricing it in. It was up 4% at open today, though, so it's kind of seeing that all those gains kind of fade away. Then we're going to get into Amazon investing $10 billion in North Carolina data centers. We've just seen this continued investment and push, and it seems like such a bullish area of the market still. The AI revolution that we're seeing commence throughout the major tech companies, and how it's going to be affecting all of these energy and data center companies going forward. I don't know if anybody's been watching CoreWeave stock, which we talked about recently on streams, but CoreWeave is like kind of one of those companies that is just going absolutely insane. We covered it when it was IPOing just a few months back. Maybe I'll try to bring it up later when we're talking about one of these topics, but up another 10% today, up 313% in just since March 31st when it IPO'd. So absolutely insane for that company. The market cap is now about $80 billion. So CoreWeave is going to the moon right now. And then last but not least, I have one more story we'll get into. It's actually Reddit suing Anthropic for they're alleging that Anthropic is unlawfully using the data from the Reddit platform. And this comes after we just talked about how Amazon and the New York Times signed a deal to, well, the New York Times signed a deal with Amazon. Hey, George, welcome to the stream. To allow them to use their data and their content and their writing for their own AI purposes. So now we have Reddit suing Anthropic, an update in that realm of things. But let's get a live look at the market before we roll into the opening segment of the market update today. If you didn't hear me in the very beginning of the stream, we have some new folks in here. Be sure to like up the stream if you are excited for the topics and always enjoy. We go live Mondays at 11 a.m. and Wednesdays at 3 p.m. typically if you're new to the Prospero community. So welcome everybody. Okay, so we have the QQQ and SPY up, Dow and Russell still red. Net option sentiment remaining very low for the SPY at 4 currently, where it's been at for the better part of the last couple of weeks. QQQ looking a lot better than the SPY. It's at 40, so sitting right on that bull bear line. How are you feeling about the market? It seems like we're in a bit of a melt up period, George. I don't know if there's any other way you could describe it. We're not really getting like these major updates seemingly, but the market just kind of drifts higher. So how are you explaining or thinking about the moves we're seeing currently?
Yeah, I mean, what is it on the side? Oh yeah, it's kind of one of those things that that it's just such a hard market to read, right? Even like yesterday to today, we're seeing the Russell down after the Russell did, outperformed yesterday. So it's like it's why we're not like, kind of adjusting too much with any of this stuff. But yeah, I think the QQQ being bullish, it's like not surprising. I think there's a general enthusiasm, I think, towards, AI again, now that I think all of the noise of everything else is kind of getting, drowned out. I think, the Trump taco thing is a very real thing at this point. And I think it's a real thing in the sense that, however you feel about it, right? I think it's creating a security in the market that says, okay, there might be more problems, but, we should buy the dip, right? We should buy the dip because, whatever problems, might occur, that it does seem like eventually the health of the market takes precedence over, whatever policy thing is being pursued, whether it's brinksmanship, whether it's, whether it's just about showing that you're not going to be a doormat to China anymore, versus actually expecting specific things vis-a-vis policy. I think that there's just a lot of that kind of worry around tariffs is wearing off. I think especially if you think about your buy and hold investors, right? For someone like me, I'm saying that like, I don't think there's any way that we don't see another market dip related to some kind of tariff news, probably as we get closer to that July 6th deadline, that's going to become more and more of a reality. But yeah, I think that when you're looking at, kind of that, part of the market right now. I think that overall there's just a lot less worry, and a lot more of a sense. I think even if you kind of look at what happened with the credit downgrade, and that was kind of a very short bear event. But I think if you look at the other side, if you're looking at that credit downgrade and saying to yourself, oh, that was kind of related to the spending bill, right? The other side of that spending bill is, there's another big, there's a big tax cut as part of it, right? And what happens when, wealthy people get a tax cut? Generally, they buy stocks. So where that was a short bear signal, like the closer this gets to passing, I think that's a pretty big bull signal.
So I'm wondering, like you're talking about the taco trade now, which is really kind of getting a life of its own. And Trump was even asked about it, so I'm sure it's on his radar. He's the type of guy, in my mind, that, he kind of lets his ego drive him a little bit. Is this going to push him to feeling the need to kind of follow through on one of these threats and maybe create an unwanted scenario where he actually does follow through on like one of these things that was being priced in and the market was worrying about, and was kind of reacting happily when he didn't follow through? But could that change, you think, in the future with this July 6th you're highlighting?
I don't think so. Like, I think, what we saw last time, and we covered this live, when people like Bill Ackman and Ken Langone, like major donors, came out and basically said, we're not cool with this, right? I don't think whether it's Trump or whether it's Vance or whoever's next in the Republican Party, or who's ever next in his succession order. I even heard Eric Trump not deny that he might run for president, right? You can't alienate the donors, right? And I think that there's only so much of that, public call out from, people who had generally, been supportive of him, been supportive of the Republican Party. I think what we're kind of seeing is that traditional allies of America, might not be as relevant now. But, everybody has to have allies. And I think Trump has allies, and you can't upset your allies, right? And I think that's what we saw. And I think, when we saw him kind of announce that people got yippee, right? I don't think he was talking about retail investors, right? How many retail investors do we think Trump is talking to on a day-to-day basis? Probably not that many. But I'll tell you who he is talking to on a day-to-day basis. People like Ken Langone, or at least, intermediaries are reaching them, whether it's through Besant, whether it, I think when you're talking about who was getting yippee, that's probably who was getting yippee. And I think there's only so much strain that, him, his allies, anyone else is really going to take, before I think we have to see the market supported. And so I think that's what we can expect going forward, right? I don't think we can expect kind of a worse decline than we've seen before, because I just don't. I think he probably doesn't want it to get that far again, because he cares about his popularity, and like I think that's the biggest hit he's taken to his popularity, like around that time. So yeah, I think we have a playbook. But that being said, could we easily see another period where the market's down 10% in a few days because he's pushing, China to the brink, because he actually lets, some very high tariffs go into effect again? Absolutely. I just don't think that we're necessarily going to see it play out as, extremely and badly as it has before.
And I'm seeing a lot of chatter on social media and in the news about this spending package. And Elon Musk yesterday, in Elon Musk style, finally came out and started a tweet storm kind of against it. And we see Tesla stock is down today in a day where generally tech stocks are doing well and up. Do you think Tesla being red is people trading the stock based off the relationship between Musk and the administration? And is there any way to quantify that? Like, if the relationship were to completely fall apart, how much would that affect Tesla? Or is it kind of too uncertain to really know how much of that is like valued in the stock right now?
I mean, I think there's a lot of excitement around Tesla right now in terms of full self-driving, in terms of, the Optimus, right? It's we've talked about this, the valuation it's at right now for a company that has, declining sales is absolutely insane, right? But I think you can look at this from two different angles, right? I think you can look at it like, wow, if Elon, has alienated Democratic voters, right? And then, through Trump, he's picking a fight with a lot of Republican voters, right? All of a sudden, you are left wondering, like, okay, maybe who is buying these cars? But I think the twist there is I do think that I think there's such a hatred of Trump that that I think a lot of Democratic voters. I'm not sure about the international people, but I think Democratic voters in America might swing back if they feel that like swing back to buying Teslas, if they feel like that's a way to stick it to Trump. If he really starts like, and there were some shots fired in the last few days. I mean, especially to the Republican Party, I think, where he said something to the effect of like, we have to like vote out anyone who put through this bill. So, it's one of those things where it's just like we've talked about this before, right? And how we've talked about Elon in the past is just that like he is an unconventional guy, to say the least, right? And for the most part, before like the Doge thing, he was pretty unconventional, but also pretty unassailable as well. But this Doge thing, we have to look at it. Is it like, is that just a bump? Has he learned his lesson? And is he going to go back to, kind of just doing everything right? Even when some people don't see it at the time, it kind of works out for him in the end. Or are we seeing kind of a descent, right? Are we seeing something like, if he does pick this fight with Trump, right? And he does lose some, Republican shareholders, Republican, buyers, and, the perception, even then, it hasn't changed enough amongst Democrats, especially shareholders, right? I think then we're, again, like, it got so bad, there were rumors that he was looking to be replaced, right? If we start to get like, these staunch supporters, a lot of them Republicans, that are kind of like buying the stock at whatever price, and a decent number of those people have more allegiance to the Republican Party than Elon, and those are kind of at odds, right? That could be very bad things for Tesla stock, regardless of what's going on with the rest of the company. So yeah, I was on a stream earlier today, and I mean, I think the one thing to say about like this whole Elon Musk, Tesla, whatever thing, it's probably the most interesting case study in the market's finance strategy that you're ever going to see, right? Because it's not just what's happening now, right? It's actually the fact that he had all these startups, right, that got funded. I mean, traditionally, for anybody that hasn't been near the startup funding arena, like typically the first thing you're going to get asked is this 100% of your time? Are you and your co-founders, all of you, coming full time on this? And generally, if the answer to that isn't yes, most investors are going to pass, right? So if you look at what he's done, starting all these companies, raising a lot of funding, without that guarantee, that alone is, makes him pretty unique. Then as you go into this situation, the way it's crossed into politics, the way that even though sales have declined and you have these like existential threats that you do not typically see for like a company that is a Mag 7 company, right? And yet you see the storm being weathered and the company still being valued incredibly high because, you know, he has such a proven track record of innovation, right? But yeah, then you go in and you're just like, well, if, and I think it's a reasonable thing to say that if a lot of the people that are continuing to buy Tesla stock as it's gone down, buying the dip, making it one of the most popular retail buying stocks ever, like I think it's reasonable to assume, given the conversations, that a lot of those people were Republican buyers, right? If, you know, if Elon then picks a fight with, you know, a president who like did better as a Republican in getting popular votes than anyone we've seen for a long time, right? What does that do for the stock price, right? Are people in the end going to be, you know, still loyal to Elon Musk, even if, you know, another hero of theirs is at odds? That's what it will continue to make it like one of the more interesting finance case studies I've ever seen.
Well, if that is to be the case, it doesn't look like Prospero signals are predicting that just yet. I see it's still got 100 upside for Tesla, but I feel like there's a decent amount of new people coming into the Prospero community. So maybe it'd be helpful if you just look through the Tesla signals right now and kind of just go through your thought process of what you think about and how you feel when you see certain levels and signals for a stock. And we'll use Tesla as kind of like an example right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting asked about Tesla, you know, more lately than I ever have. And net option sentiment has been going up the last few days, even as the stock has been going down. That's interesting. But even then, historically, 77 net option sentiment, while great for most companies, is not so great for Tesla. Now this like consistent 100 upside. A stock that stays at 100 upside as long as Tesla has, you know, historically we're not looking at that many names. We're looking at Meta, which went on a huge run after, you know, sitting there. We're talking about Coinbase, same thing, right? I think those two are the only stocks that I've seen at upside 100, as long as Tesla, right? So there's that, but there's also the other side to it, where it's just like, well, both of those were 2 for 2 on that 100 upside breakout situation. And when we back tested upside, you know, a long time ago, we found it to a portfolio of stocks above 80 upside to beat the S&P 500 for a 1-year hold 80% of the time, right? So even just looking at those numbers, right, by the time you get to 4 or 5 examples of this, could be that it's the one that's wrong, right? But that's just kind of the disclaimer. Like the other side to it is, if people are betting on it in the long-term options markets institutionally, analysts still like, you know, where it's trading versus where their price target's at. Price momentum factors have obviously shifted a bit for it to be at 100 upside. So yeah, it's hard not to look at that and how consistent that number is and say like, yeah, maybe institutions are really pretty certain that FSD is going to be a thing. You know, I heard earlier today talking about like, oh, maybe you don't want to pick a fight with a governing body when you need a governing body to roll out FSD. But the point was made that like maybe the regulators were gutted so much that they won't effectively be able to regulate it. You know, regardless, it's definitely it's definitely a very, very interesting thing that we're going to have to keep watching. But overall, like, hard to say that it's like not that you shouldn't be bullish, given the numbers, especially on the longer term, maybe not on the shorter term. But yeah, it's a very, very, very interesting situation. And it's always like there's an aspect to the Prospero signals where very often I can completely intellectually understand why they are where they are and they moved how they have. Like, a really good example was what happened with NVIDIA, like about a month ago, right? We saw that, the Biden era regulations of selling chips were repealed, very shortly around that time. We saw upside go from like 60 to 90, right? And it's just like, okay, I understand exactly why that happened, right? But if I ever have a concern with a signal not working out the way it is, right, it definitely is around me not being able to fully understand why it's there. And yeah, you can always take comfort in the fact that, like, institutions, I may or may not know, but institutions are overwhelmingly confident in betting above where the stock is trading in the long-term options markets. And they very well might know something we don't, right? About the probability of this, about the security of the business. Maybe they have it on good authority that this shit with Elon Musk is just political theater, right? And it's all going to die down, and it won't really hurt sales any more than it has. Or maybe there's another big product announcement that's going to be made about the Optimist. There was just like a video that did well for the stock. We don't really know why institutions are bullish all the time. But the one thing, maybe we could say, why is it in our high conviction portfolio if we have this history of, like, upside being such a stable signal? Like, one of the reasons is I don't really like a 77 net option sentiment. I would like to see it probably 85, 90 to be like, I'm putting this in the portfolio, especially Tesla, something that runs traditionally that high. But yeah, the other side to it is for me to really be excited about an opportunity, I have to be able to see the signals as well as, like, rationalize the signals. And I can't draw a straight line between that valuation it's trading at now, the risk factors it has, and the confidence that signal is showing. And I'd say until that makes sense, or until I see net option sentiment go to about 90, where it's just like, oh, I don't care what I'm missing. I'm probably missing something, but I'm probably going to regret not taking this opportunity. Then I'm in wait and see mode.
Well, here's another stock I want to get your opinion on, because it is up 56% year to date and up 166% in the past year. And that stock is Roblox, which I saw this performance. I was like, what's going on with Roblox? Let me look at the Prospero signals. And when I looked this morning, it had a 94 net option sentiment, 85 upside. Its net option sentiment dropped down to 84 now this afternoon, but being over 90 before, I was like, wow, what's going on there? And then I remembered the update that happened with Apple and Epic Games, and how Epic Games kind of won, I believe, that lawsuit of, like, how much Apple charges the apps in its app store. And I'm wondering if big apps are kind of, and companies like Roblox, if investors are pricing in that more will kind of take the Epic Games route and be able to make more money. How do you feel about Roblox, the stock itself, now that it's run so much, the signals in Prospero, and kind of that thought process? Like, are big apps on the App Store attractive because of that Epic Games precedent?
Well, it's actually interesting because I was on a space yesterday where I was looking at the top. We were talking about Palantir. We were talking about Coinbase, which were it was like Palantir. I forget what the second one that we were talking about was. Oh, Robinhood. Palantir and Robinhood were 1 and 2, and then Coinbase was 4, and we were talking about that in the space yesterday. But I was like rounding out the top 10, in, just a simple, for anyone that wants to know, like, some of my secrets, some of them aren't complicated. A lot of the time I will just add upside and net option sentiment and say what's highest, right? Not exactly rocket science there. But Roblox was number 9, right? And I was like, whoa, like what is the market cap on Roblox? It is 62 billion. I mean, it's actually surprising. That's higher than I thought it was. But yeah, I mean, institutions are bullish on it, and I think that settlement is a very, very interesting data point. I mean, it's crazy how much some of these companies are worth now, how much they generate. But it's kind of like building that ecosystem. It used to be just like a game. You'd make like one game a year. I mean, in the case of GTA, where I was shocked how much that made, but that takes a long time to make. But you're making these games, you sell some, but that constant stream of revenue. And I also think like the way you can buy things, like, kids can buy things a lot easier. Like back in my day, like I would have to like get my parent to like physically, come and buy something, or like, but there was no way I was going to like be getting a credit card. But yeah, these days it's just like, the information's in there. Like if there aren't the proper parental controls, whatever, you're just like buying it. Yeah, I think it's super interesting. PK, I feel like I'm sorry I took you a little while to respond to your first email, but I feel like I gave you this answer. There is no institutional flow anymore. I got this question. We replaced institutional flow with technical flow because institutional flow used a lot of 13F data, and 13F data is published once a quarter. It's you're kind of always looking at data that's at least 6 weeks old. And also when a company publishes, anytime you're looking at institutional transactions, by the way, all of those are just 13F data. Anytime you're looking at, a congressperson's buys and sells, you're looking at, a similar delayed filing, right? And that's always super important, right? Because it's just like, for all the talk of like, Pelosi tracker working, blah, 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 all that stuff, there are a lot of strategies that work in bull markets that don't. And so what you won't know when you do a Pelosi tracker and you say she's buying the stock or like whatever, if the market is moving fast or there's a negative news event, she's selling and you're finding out that she sold 6 weeks later, right? So I think that's something that I think retail investors never understand well enough, that there's so many different things that have huge gains in bull markets that you could lose that and more in bear markets. So like the one thing I always try to impress upon retail investors is know how long something takes to get to you. Like we work very hard to get net option sentiment to you every 3 minutes, right? Because we want you to know exactly what's happening, right? I got out of Palantir this morning, maybe a little prematurely, but it was at 92 net option sentiment at close yesterday, and it opened up at 84. And I didn't like the look of that, right? I didn't like, it's only an 8-point difference. Still didn't like the look of it. I've saved a lot of money that way, and that's what you get when these things are updating fast. But that's the flaw. That's why we replaced institutional sentiment, because although it is an interesting number to look at, it doesn't update fast enough. So when we replaced it with technical flow, we were looking at the same kind of like, we looked at institutional momentum more holistically, like, the same kind of theory, looking at kind of like block trades, things like that, but also traditional technical signals, because at the end of the day, right, if an EMA, an exponential moving average, is moving in a certain direction, right, that's because institutions that control most of the market their algorithms are moving it according to those EMAs. So we viewed that to be a more valid thing. But yeah, as I said in the email, no worries, PK. I just wanted to make sure you saw it because I didn't want you to think I was not paying attention. But you can think of technical flow the same way in those same equations, right? It being high, is a good, especially co-signal. Like what we really like about those three, like net options, net social, technical flow, right? If all three of those are looking good, you're probably in pretty good shape for a trade. But yeah, like we always say, still layer in your own process to that. But we really liked that addition as opposed to institutional flow. And to say it in a different way in terms of the speed, we didn't want someone comforted by a high institutional flow when that could be a stale number, when basically you're only going to find out 6 weeks later that institutions had sold a bunch of that stock, and you're still staring down a very high institutional flow even as that's happening.
Thank you, PK, for the question. I definitely want to talk about this next stock on the stream today because they have earnings tomorrow, and that company is Broadcom Avgo. Been a consistently good-looking company in our metrics. So how are you feeling about them? I feel like we're having a rejuvenation of the chip and the AI wave, so maybe pretty bullish. But what do you think?
I mean, yeah, we're Broadcom is reporting, and Broadcom is looking pretty good in the signals right now. I mean, I don't know if I want to take it for a ride or not. I actually have a call at 4, so maybe I don't want to I think if I do that, I'm not going to be paying attention during that call very well. But for anyone that might have the time to look, I'd probably bet more that it's good than bad, but not enough to necessarily stake. Not necessarily to add it to the high conviction portfolio. If it's not in the trading portfolio, I'll probably look to add it, right? Because it's a little higher risk, a little larger. But yeah, I think we're definitely seeing it. I mean, no doubt about it. AMD is running. I think like we've talked about so many times, macroeconomic concerns, growth stocks are going to get hammered more. But that was the headwind, right? With that headwind dying down, and like we're talking about with, I just think overall people are just not validating the bear story as much anymore, especially because I think, say what you want about any of it, right? If it was only about tariffs and needing to get the tariffs in force, there wouldn't be these pullbacks, right? There would just be, these are the tariffs we need as a country. We're not backing off, right? As we're not seeing that, I think we are getting messages that it's not only about tariffs, right? And I'm not saying it should only be about tariffs, right? If the market's going down, I don't think we should just ignore it just to get tariffs in place, right? We're talking about, we're obviously talking about I think donors that are caring about, the Bill Ackmans and the Ken Langones of the world, I don't think, and I think Ken Langone specifically said it wasn't the tariff problem, it was the way it was being handled, right? And I think that's I think there's a lot of people, especially a lot of conservative people, and I wouldn't necessarily consider myself leaning one way or the other. I have some pretty complex political beliefs, but I certainly believe that, where we are in trade policy is not where we want to be, especially vis-a-vis China, right? So I think that it just comes down to, and I'm happy that it comes down to this, that it's just there's only so much that the market is willing to take. So to bring that back to chips, obviously we talked about NVIDIA, how those, regulations loosen. And it's just okay, if there's not this drag on growth stocks and people being concerned about a potential drag on growth stocks, a headline, really bringing them down a lot, and that maybe there's not a bottom to that fall. I think there's people more confident in what the bottom is for that fall. And we always talk about it. It's just they have to be able to model, right? And I think these people buying growth stocks now are basically being okay, I think we could model the floor of Liberation Day for these growth stocks, tech growth stocks, right? now what's the upside, right? Now I know the floor. Now I can price in the upside more. And I think that's what we're seeing because, we're back to the AI boom being a very real thing that's right in front of us that are driving these, chip sales. We've seen, nuclear companies start to run. We've seen quantum computing chips, run more. And it's like all the same story, right? There's not enough power. There's not enough compute to drive this AI revolution that we are in the midst of. So, that pretty much means like, you always talk about like, what share of the market does something need to justify the valuation, right? And if you look at the market and the market isn't like, oh, it's a $5 trillion market. The market is like, infinity, right? If that's what you're looking at, where it's just like, how big's the market? I don't know. We just know that there's not, we know that they could take unlimited orders. We need unlimited power. And then maybe we'd have enough, but we don't know, right? That's a very, very good way to get stocks that are growth stocks that are selling chips, that are selling, that are researching quantum, that are researching different kinds of power. That's a very good way for people to be like, well, what's the right valuation? I don't know. We don't know how big this market can get. So, the sky's the limit on the market. The sky's the limit on these stocks.
Well, it seems like CoreWeave is a stock that's exactly like kind of riding the wave of what you're talking about. Now has a $78 billion market cap and has gone up 300% since IPOing. But we're coming towards the end of our time here. So let me just go through a couple of the topics because they're all kind of in the same vein of what you're talking about. So Meta signed a 20-year deal with Constellation Energy, sets to start in 2027 to fund their AI innovation. Amazon investing $10 billion in North Carolina data center push. What I found interesting about that topic was they said it's only going to, well, they didn't say only, but I'm saying only account for 500 jobs. And I hear the number 10 billion. I'm like, wow, 500 jobs? That seems kind of low. And then last but not least, Reddit suing Anthropic, alleging they are illegally, unlawfully using their data in their AI. So a bunch of AI updates there, but we're kind of running out of time here. But whatever you think is most interesting to highlight, and maybe even CoreWeave, as we've talked about them recently.
I mean, let's go. Let's move through these. I continue to think the people paying these prices for CoreWeave are absolutely insane when you have NVIDIA sitting at the valuation that it is. I think we actually added, what is the CoreWeave ticker? I think we got it in.
CRWV.
CRWV. Oh yeah, I got it.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That is fascinating. I mean, I have to look into this because I don't know if it's just a new stock. We've got a 79 downside despite an 86 growth and a 0 net option sentiment. I guess that's why God. SPY net option sentiment is not. That's hilarious because like my first instinct was like, yeah, overvalued.
Can that be real?
That's hilarious. That is that's super funny. Yeah, CoreWeave we think is overvalued. I think Prospero seems to agree. Anthropic and it was Anthropic and Reddit. That's super interesting. I think that there's a lot to work out on these rights, and I mean I really hope that Reddit really cares about this data. But I hope the end of this isn't Reddit like locking down its API like X did, because we used to have a wider population for our social sentiment, but X made it really, really hard to use their data. So we really depend on Reddit, and if Reddit locks it down, we might have to switch to a different system entirely. But yeah, I think there's a lot to figure out on this copyright stuff. I think that or this like rights. I mean, I think ultimately there's going to have to be like, I think Reddit will just end up getting, some fee to open it up. But they're right. It shouldn't be free. But, it's one of those things that is a double-edged sword, right? I don't think Reddit minds being scraped, because when you're scraped, you have browsers hitting you, you're getting like user numbers. If you have a lot of bots on your platform, maybe hedge fund bots, those are going to be really upping your user numbers, getting your interaction. So it's a double-edged sword. You open something up, make it pretty easy to access it, versus X. And you really inflate your numbers, help your IPO that way, attract more advertisers, because those numbers are what you're using to get advertisers. But the flip side is, if you're open, you're also easy to scrape. You're also easy to do. So I think talking through all of it, sometimes it's fun to just do my stream of consciousness. Talking through all of it, it's just no, they're way too dependent on this open stream. I don't think they're going to lock it down. But I do think they can probably figure out a way to get some money from a place like Anthropic for it. But like I'm saying, they don't have that much negotiating leverage, because Anthropic could just basically say what I said. It's just well, yeah, it's nice that you want us to pay, but I don't think you really have any way to keep us out. So good luck.
Well, that was a fun stream. I think those topics were awesome. I hope you guys have enjoyed them. We've had over 1,600 people. Time to do the switchover. We'll catch back with George on the other side doing the model portfolio update. So stick around, everybody, with me here. George will be right back. And if you're watching your first stream, what we do now is we make live updates to the Prospero model portfolio. So you get to see what stocks we add and drop, which is a paid for newsletter. But when you watch the streams, you get to see it for free. So definitely stick around. I'm going to look at the Prospero signals and the market and see if anything has changed while we've been talking. It looks like nothing has really changed. Kind of a very low volatility day in the markets. Dow Jones and Russell slightly red, both within 0.1% of the flat line. QQQ and SPY both green, again, very, very slightly. So not big moves in the market today. I see a comment from Yitzi on YouTube. What are your thoughts on the companies that probably going to go in the S&P 500, like Carvana or Robinhood? I will let George answer that for you, Yitzi, when he's back in here. We did talk about Robinhood and AppLovin, and we have a short for it on YouTube. It's actually posted on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We talked about it on Monday, so you can watch that if you're curious on Hood, but I'm sure George will answer your question again when he gets back in here. Let's take a look at the SPY QQQ net option sentiment. SPY is currently at 5 and QQQ is at 36. So slight change since the beginning of the stream. Not much of a difference there either. I see a question from Jonathan as well on YouTube. We'll wait till George gets back in here. But Jonathan asks, are you surprised to see Eli Lilly, net option sentiment at 100? Is it really all the way up to 100? If you guys didn't see, we checked out CoreWeave and Prospero. I'm sure there's a lot of people following it since it's making such big moves recently. Has a 0 net option sentiment, 20 upside, 79 downside right now. That is crazy. I'm going to be watching that over the coming days, see if that's just because they just added it or if anything's going to change with that. Oh, we got a lot of questions now. Cool. What do you think of the IPO circle from John Connolly? George, you're going to have to multitask here. We got questions for you in the chat right now.
No, I'm not surprised to see Eli Lilly at 100. I think that it's one of those things that, you get to a certain, it was just such an exciting company that so many people had a lot of faith, a lot of upside in, and, it had a bit of a slump. But I think people are starting to look, more as everything stabilizes. I think people are willing to look a little bit more at these, it's the same thing as we're talking about with the chips, right? Growth becomes more attractive again. And in terms of healthcare, right? Eli Lilly is as exciting as anything, right?
Any thoughts on Carvana or Hood possibly adding to S&P 500?
I got burned. I got burned with that S&P 500 ad earlier, so I'm not like I like. Honestly, like I'm gonna regret this. I know. Like maybe I should. Maybe I should get Robinhood. I'm kind of talking myself into it. Like Robinhood was number one in. Let's see it right now. Like I think it's been in that kind of like combination upside. Yeah, I mean net options is down to 88. You know, some of these growth things did take a bit of a hit today. I think I just like kind of talked myself into adding Robinhood. Like I don't like the way it is in the signals, and like the perception around it has really changed. Like I don't know. I got a really, and it's just been the stock's just been running. Like that matters to the S&P. Like I should I should put it in my portfolio. Like I just like talk myself into it. Like I mean, yeah, there's downside. It could not get added, but I just feel like it's gonna get added.
Any thoughts about the Circle IPO?
No thoughts. I got to focus on this, but I'll come back with thoughts on Monday.
And a question from Arvin about NBIS, which is, I think, a CoreWeave related stock. But Arvin, we just looked at CoreWeave signals in Prospero, and they're pretty dire. So I'm not sure if NBIS is not in Prospero that I see. So, but if it's similar to CoreWeave, maybe a similar story there.
I thought we just added it. Did you just check?
CoreWeave is there. NBIS, Arvin is asking for, is not.
Oh, all right. I'll look to add that. I thought it was like another one. I think like NVST that we just added. All right, let's see. God, I have Brent. Shout out Brent. He normally helps me with the picks. Sorry for anyone on the trading letter. I have not updated it. I have to clear the backlog on that. Just too busy of a week. It's New York Tech Week.
Energy looks like a good bear target, as well as utilities. On the bull side, we will look to add where we have less current exposure outside of tech, communications, and healthcare.
Sometimes we forget to do this. Oh no, we gotta get this. I really need to clean up my bookmarks. Oh. I thought I started this. Oh no. All right, that should work now. Yep. Okay, we need this. How are we doing on time? Not great, but okay.
Comment from John asking about Elf stock, which we talked about on Wednesday, I believe.
I mean,
in detail.
It's been kind of on my radar. That being said, I haven't seen it in like Momentum Score. If I saw it in Momentum Score, I would definitely add it. I haven't seen it kind of in any of the things that I run. But in theory, I like it. In practice, it just hasn't like hit any of the things I'm really looking at. What are the Steven? You want to tell me what the signals are on it? Maybe we'll add it because we do want to. I wouldn't mind a little more.
They're pretty good. It has 83 net options, 61 upside, 38 downside, 89 technical, 57 profitability.
Wow, does anyone know what's going on with basic materials. That's like a lot. That's like a lot of, I'm seeing like, it is weird to see 2 basic materials at the top of momentum score. That can't be a coincidence. And 3, 4, something is going on with basic materials.
Interesting.
Oh, I forgot to do this. Oh, we're tight on time. Tight on time.
Jonathan said Trump's 50% steel and aluminum tariffs take effect today.
Oh, there we go. Damn, we're like exiting our whole short portfolio here. That is like a big, oh God. On this day, when I have to do it, ugh. No rest for the weary here. What's going on with UNH? I'm really disappointed with UNH. But we are. Yeah, looks like we're just doing a big turnover. All right, I'm leaving one of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Are any of those LNGs wins? That's a big cut. Oh well, don't really have time to think about it too much. Don't have too much time to think about it at all. That cost me. All right, I actually do need to do this. All right, we've got 33 longs, 33 shorts. Okay, we got some leeway actually here. All right, let's see what we're doing. I think we have this. EXP. That's interesting. Let's just grab these. PVH, AMN, why not? That's good. Yeah. Let's make sure we're balancing that out. TKR. Do we have another industrials? Do we have industrials up here? Yeah, okay. All right, we're going to add ELF. We're just moving quickly. Oh my God. I didn't even realize this is all. I'm going to have to take care of all these as well. All right, there. UPS, that's interesting. Sure, why not? I don't know how I feel about it. Oh yeah, small. Give me that small cap healthcare company. Great. All right, RBC. That's great. What is going on here? Small cap consumer cyclical. Okay, I'm in. I think that's it. Unless we want. Let's just grab a little more large cap exposure. All right. All right, this is definitely going to be a look at the list day. All right. All right. Any last? Actually, sorry, I don't have time for questions.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you guys for tuning in. It was a lot of fun. We'll see you back here Monday, 11 a.m. Have a great rest of the week, everybody. Bye, George. See you guys later.